To truth. So my goal is to unpack it slowly over the next few weeks, because we've been duped about a lot of things, and I think the further we go through life, the further we grow, the further we mature in life, the more we uncover about some of the things that I have been a part of, some of the things that I've done, some of the things that I thought I knew, that some of it was based on erroneous information. So I want to take a moment to unpack that. So let's start with Acts 2. Acts 2. So that will be our foundation for the next couple of weeks. However, we'll be springboarding into different areas. So I want to invite you, if you can, to take as many notes as you can, because I want you to really process this. Right, so over the next few weeks, we'll talk about, can't cover it all in one day, but we'll talk about the idea of I don't have to go to church to know God. We'll talk about that I can worship at home. We'll uncover every stereotype and every comment that people have made concerning church, from it's an institution, the church ain't nothing but a business, that place only wants my money. So we'll unpack it all in the next few weeks. And we have heard enough of people's comments to formulate an opinion. So what I want to do is counter that, what God has to say concerning church. We've heard everybody else's opinion about it. I think it's far more important that we understand what God views and whether or not they're right. Does God say that it's not required for you to come to church, or it's not a need, that you can grow with me absolutely? You can go through life for the rest of your life growing, and you never have to come to church. We'll unpack every angle, every nook and cranny, every alley, and every dark space that yells some of these cliches and taglines. So today we'll just start with Acts 2. Let's take a look at verse 42. Acts 2, verse 42. Acts 2, verse 42. And they continued, talking about the early church, the first church. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' teaching or doctrine, and in fellowship, and in breaking of bread, and in prayers. You may be seated. They continued, early church continued steadfastly in the apostles' teaching or doctrine. They continued daily with fellowship. They continued consistently in breaking of bread, and they continued steadfastly in prayers. Early church. First century church continued steadfastly in every opportunity that was available to learn God's word, just to know what it says. They did this continuously. First century church. 21st century church. First century church continued steadfastly in fellowshipping and cultivating and developing friendships that evolved to being family members with one another. 21st century church. First century church continue steadfastly in breaking bread. They ate with one another. They broke bread with one another. They communed with one another. 21st century church. The breaking of bread was twofold. One, to commemorate Holy Communion, the Lord's Supper, with one another. They made sure that they were present and available when the breaking of bread. First century church, 21st century church.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I see.
Preach, Pastor.
Yes, sir. Wow.
How about if we do it once a month? Can you come once a month?
Wow. Jesus.
I know sometimes it's 4 Sundays and then it's 5, depending on the month. But can you come one if we do it once?
Come on, Pastor. Teach, sir.
No? Got other stuff to do.
Jesus.
First century church made sure they continued steadfastly in 21st century church. First century church continued steadfastly in opportunities to pray. Whenever they knew they were going to pray or thought they were going to pray, they were present to pray. They looked for opportunities to talk to God together. They did it individually, but they looked forward to doing it corporately because they understood when 2 or 3 were gathered together, touching and agreeing on anything, that God would be in the midst. They didn't have to have it crowded, but as long as it was one other person that they could connect with and gather with, they recognized power but would be present in the room. And so every opportunity there was to pray and to gather for prayer, they were present. They continued doing that daily, steadfastly. First century church, 21st century church. If you can't drive here, could you pick up your cellular device that you have in your hand all the time throughout the day and that you look at every hour? Would you be willing to just listen and put it on speaker on a Tuesday morning?
Come on, Pastor.
You don't look at your phone on Tuesday mornings? I get that. You don't look at your phone on Tuesday morning. You ain't got time for that. How about on Thursdays? That after your day has ended, well, all of your responsibilities and all of your tasks and all of the things that compete for your attention, would you be willing, not necessarily to gather and drive across town to come and to pray and to touch and agree? That would be great. But I know that would be too much for you to require, demand, and to expect for you to want to come and to touch and agree and to pray and for God to be in the midst. But maybe could you pick up that same device that you had been on throughout your day on a Thursday? Would you mind just putting on speaker on a Thursday? Because I know you got to do stuff at 7, and I know you're trying to get dinner ready at 6. Could you do it at, let's say, 9 o'clock? No? Too busy? Got it. First century church had no titles, but they had power. They weren't impressed who was the usher, who was the singer, who was the choir director, who was on the praise team. They all had the same responsibility. First century church was not impressed with a title, but they had power. 21st century church don't pray, but want titles, but they don't have no power. First century church consistently operated in signs, wonders, and miracles. 21st century church ain't seen one.
Yeah. Come on, Pastor.
You expect power without prayer. And the reason that maybe some of us don't see the need to continue steadfastly in the apostles' teaching and what was taught about the Word of God and just knowing what it says. And maybe it's not important for me to fellowship. And maybe it's not important for me to do this consistently, to break bread with my brothers and sisters. And maybe it's not important and it's not necessary. It's not necessary for me to pray corporately with everybody else. It's not necessary for that I do it on a Tuesday or do it every single day or to do it on a Thursday. It's not important for me to fast and to turn my plate down. I don't have to fast in order to get closer to God. I don't have to fast to operate in power. I don't have to fast to be able to put demons in flight. I don't have to do all of that other stuff. And the reason I might be experiencing some of those moments where I'm detached from all four of those things that promote growth for the body of Christ is maybe I believe what everyone told me, that I don't necessarily need to go to church to have God. So in some truth, there are some Christians now who believe more of what the world has told them than what God has said in his word. It is the power of repetition. It's the power of repetition. You hear it enough, they say it enough, and if they appear to be sincere, it's believable. All they got to do it is repetitiously. If they do it repetitiously and come off as sincere, then it's just got to be truth. There is no posture of inquiry for us to investigate, to go deeper. None at all. And the body of believers who have rights and privileges extended to them, the ability to walk in power, the ability to change things in the earth, who believe that their belief system is based upon the one true God. They believe that their belief system is right. They believe that if they die because of that belief system, they will go into heaven, but have absolutely no desire to know what this book says concerning their life. It is equivalent to a 5-year-old recognizing, I want to be a doctor, I want to be great, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to do some great, I'm going to invent some things, but I don't have to go to school. Why? I don't need to learn that stuff to be a doctor. I don't need to learn stuff to be great. Here's one thing that is extremely admirable to me. There are other belief systems that are on this planet. And their diligence to learn the precepts of that religion far outweighs our desire to learn our own. Half or maybe most of Muslims who are English speaking, raised in America, can speak some form of Arabic. We don't know 3 verses. Nor do I have a desire to read. Nor do I have a desire to learn. Nor do I have a desire to pray. What do you expect from God when you don't want to know anything about his word? You don't want to pray. You don't want to learn. You don't want to do nothing but get into heaven. No one, now I get it, why we don't like to evangelize. Because what I'm going to talk about when I go. I don't know enough about him to have an intellectual conversation with someone of an opposite faith that would be willing to challenge me about my belief system. Because most of the time, people who are outside of my faith know more about Scripture than I do, and I claim to be a follower of the one true God. How embarrassing it is. If you see a Muslim, see somebody, a black Hebrew, standing on the corner, preaching or saying anything against the Christian faith, there is no way you will have the gumption, the gut, the heart, the passion, or the tenacity to walk up into him and start quoting Scripture. Why? Because you don't know any. And when they start telling you that what you learn is the white man's religion, how can you refute it? Because you don't know it.
Yeah. Come on, Pastor.
I know what I believe. What is that? Can't even clearly articulate it. I just know what I believe. Can't defend it. When the scripture says that we're supposed to be able to give an answer for every person that rebuttals our faith. I'm supposed to give an intelligent argument as to what I believe, and we can't even do that. We cannot even do that. If there had to be a day that if out of 7 days that this is the only day I could choose, if I can't choose but one day out of 7, it should be Bible study. If I had to create a day for all of you, I would rather you come to a Bible study than I would on a Sunday service. Because at least for this moment, you don't have to have a praise team to pump you up to get excited about God. At least I can infuse into you what God has to say concerning his word. And it doesn't have to require emotionalism. If I had to choose, I would rather you learn your faith so that you can stand flat-footed on your own self and have a foundation for what you believe. Because if you don't have a foundation, somebody can tell you anything and you'll be tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. So we got believers now, those who stand under the banner of being believers, who even say it is the most idiotic thing that I ever heard a believer say. I don't have to go to church. It's not required. And I will be all day trying to defend that statement for every person that says it. But the unbelievers don't make that statement. It's the ones that go to the banner that says, I am a believer of Jesus Christ. It's the one that rallies under those parades that say, I know I'm going to heaven, I believe in Jesus Christ, but I don't have to go to. That clearly echoes your ignorance concerning Scripture. How could one say this? You're embarrassing yourself by saying, I don't have to go to church. It's not required. You clearly hasn't read it. I don't got to go to school to get my diploma. I can graduate without going to school. I can pass my test without going to class. And if I do show up to class, I ain't bringing my book. There's other ways I can learn. I can learn at home. I don't got to go to class to learn algebra. I don't have to go there to learn algebraic equations. I will be able to figure this out. I can learn how to do X minus Y equals at home. I can figure out what the X mean when I get at home. That ain't even required for me to learn. And to matriculate and to get to trigonometry, man, please. Angles, I know angles. I know right angles and left angles. Good angles and bad angles. I'm going to be using my phone. I know how to use angles. I don't need geometry to learn. What am I use angles for in the real world? But I can still be successful, and I'll still graduate, and I'll still be promoted, because I can learn at home without my book. Without an instruction manual and without an instructor, I can still learn. Let your kids say something like that to you. In your level of maturity, it is the most ignorant statement they can make. But you give them a pass because you recognize you don't know any better. You haven't matured enough to understand that for you to get to the end stage, it is required that you learn certain things that build upon the next thing. Their level of immaturity boasts of ignorance. They get excited about what they don't know. I ain't got to learn that. I don't need that. That's dumb. No, that's not dumb. You're dumb for not wanting to know what that is. But they boast about their ignorance. And the first century church realized that in order for us to succeed, in order for us to grow, In a world that is counter to what we believe in and what we stand for, we need one another. We need one another. So I'm going to give you just a few things to consider. Right? So the first century church, when it is mentioned in the New Testament, Matthew 16, verse 18, Jesus says, upon this rock I will build my church. Ecclesia in the Greek. Ecclesia. E-K-K-L-E-S-I-A. Ecclesia. E-K-K-L-E-S-I-A. Ecclesia in the Greek. And the reason I'm telling you with the Greek word for the original translation for what the word church was, it's different in translation to the English language now. Upon this rock I will build. Jesus says, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell should not prevail against it. I will build my church, and what I build, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Saying several things in that one statement. Number one, it is the expectation that you will come against the gates of hell. But he says, what I am building, though they're coming against you in terms of opposition and warfare, they will not prevail. They will attack, but they will not prevail. They will attack, but they're not going to prevail. So if church is meaningless, insignificant, so Jesus wasted his time building something that the gates of hell does not have the ability to prevail against. But we've heard church ain't necessary. But he's building something to withstand the opposition of the kingdom of darkness. Just a thought. I will build my ecclesia. In Greek, ecclesia comes from two words. Ek, write this, means out of. Out of. Ek. The EK in the ek means out of. Okay? Klesia. Klesia. K-L-E-S-I-A. Also comes from a derivative of the word kaleo. K-A-L-E-O. Which means called out, called out, called out, right? Called out. So in essence, the original word for Greek, when it was said, it is the ones who are the called out ones. It's the called out ones. The church are the called out ones. They're the ones that gather. They're called out. They're called out. They're called out. I will build my called out ones. So that was the Greek. So, as the Western world developed their relationship with language, and it evolved, the English language is very difficult, that we're limited linguistically in what we say and what we're trying to convey. So the English word, it's not an English word that's really closely associated to how it was originally meant. So we derived our English word of church from the German word, Kirche. Kirche. K-I-R-S-C-H-E. Right? Which means, get this, look at the difference. How the English word moves it. They didn't take it from the original Greek. It takes it from a German word, which means a sacred place. Wow. A sacred place. A sacred place. So then, over time, we conceptualize that the word church didn't mean called out people. That we just only isolated conceptually as a sacred place to gather. So then, from century to century to century, they slowly moved away from how the first century church was operating. The first century church made it primary to put God as priority than people. God was priority than people. God was priority than people. Everything else fell under that. First century church, God is priority. Nothing trumps God. Nothing trumps God. Nothing trumps my responsibilities. Fall secondary next to God. God becomes primary, then people in the ecclesia. God is priority, then people in the ecclesia. Everything else is secondary. But as time evolved and the language, as it got over to the Western culture, it evolved to not being about the called out ones, the people, and God being priority. It was more about a sacred place. So now people only see church in 21st century as a place, something that they go to, rather than the first century church in being.
Wow. Amen.
First century church, be. We're being the church. 21st century, I'm going to church.
Yes, sir.
Two big divides, two big polarities. This is why when they come, they have no priority and they care nothing about people, because they were only trying to fulfill an obligation of going to a sacred place rather than being the ecclesia. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So now what they're really saying is, I don't want to go to a place, because when we read verse 42, the ecclesia was consistent and they were committed. They were consistent and they were committed. 21st century church bases their definition of what church is as a place that it only is required when it's convenient. First century church, I'll make decisions based upon my commitment and my consistency. 21st century church, I'll go if I feel like it. First century church, commitment. 21st century, convenient.
Come on. Yes, sir.
21st century church, first century church, I'm consistent. 21st century church, I'm looking for comfort. One is committed, one is consistent, the other one looks for comfort and convenience.
Yes, sir.
So now today, we are focused on going to church rather than being to church.
Pastor. Yes, sir. Amen.
So now we have formulated opinions and what we have heard. So no, I'm not called to go to brick and mortar. I'm called to be the church. I'm not called to a place. I'm called to a people.
Come on, Pastor. Teach, sir.
So if you don't have the correct definition for it, yes, I will come and choose comfort and convenience because I'm viewing it as a sacred place, but not as a special people. And so I'm called out to care about the people under the priority of God. But now I just view it as just a place. So the first century church grows from a religion that has dominated the globe, based upon the principles that we see exuded starting in Acts 2. Jumps from 11 people from the disciples, 11 that was selected. It moves from 11 people who embody these principles. It jumps from 11 to 120. It jumps from 120 to 3,000. Then you get to chapter 5, then another 5,000 give their life to Christ. So it jumps from 11 to 120, to 120 to 3,000, from 3,000 to 5,000 on top of the 3,000. So it jumps from 11 all the way to 8,000 in 2 chapters. Get this, without brick and mortar.
Amen.
And one of the hardest things for people to wrap their mind around is that they can't imagine New Direction existing without a place. And I have gotten myself stressed about a place rather than concerned about people. Because what difference does it make that you get the biggest place, but you ain't got no people in there to do what they need to be done? I just got more square footage to vacuum. That means there's more trash cans to dump that I got to beg somebody to do who don't feel like doing it because it's not comfortable and it's not convenient.
You preaching, Pastor.
Yeah. Yeah. We want bigger without responsibility. We want more without a mandate. Yeah. So, Acts 2:42 says this, Melvin. They continue steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine, teaching. We'll unpack that later. Then fellowship, connecting with one another. Fellowship means to have something in common, right? Let me get a few volunteers. Would someone like to volunteer? Yes, that's one, that's two. I got you. That's three. Okay, thank you. No. Well, wait a minute. Are you familiar with this? You had this one at home? You don't have this at home? Okay, well then you can come and be the third then. I thought you had this at home. Okay. Okay, you three may come. Okay. Okay. So just like how we are on sitcoms, okay, you're going to be very uncomfortable and kind of turn your body just slightly like this, but you're looking over to your shoulder to communicate. So you always want to keep your body facing the screen, but you can slightly turn your head. You know, you don't face the camera, but you can slightly turn, but your head has to be, yes. All right, so you want them to get good views of you as you work together, just for camera. Okay. All right, so we're going to come on up here. So in this box, for illustration's sake, is a vacuum, okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and give us the photo. Not too far, Rip. That's good, because I still need to go to it. Yeah. Now I want you to pay close attention to their activity.
Everybody got instructions.
Well, let's see. Her question is there instructions in here? Nope. No instructions.
So you just want me to go by now?
Okay, I don't think nobody can see that, but let me move that over. Just a hit of advice, it might be helpful to just keep your eye on the photo.
Oh, yeah, that was a good idea.
It might work best if you just keep your eyes on the photo. Do we have all of the pieces? Okay, now we have an extra piece. So, well,
This is just an add-on.
that's an add-on. Okay, that's okay. Not necessary right now?
No, I don't need it right now. That's a special. But we gonna
Piece is not necessary.
we gonna need it though.
You're gonna need it,
We need all
but not right now.
right, but every piece within we need.
So, okay. So what we gonna do with it? Are we gonna keep the piece or put the piece back in?
Keep it. It's gonna keep the piece.
What we gonna do with the piece?
This part in place. This part. Yeah. Oh.
Okay. All right. That's everything.
See, I knew we was gonna need her. That's why we didn't throw her away.
So let me give you something to consider. Okay? Let me give you what 21st century church looks like. 21st century church is happy that all of the pieces are confined in four walls. So as long as we came to a place, we're together. So I'm going to ask you this question. There were multiple pieces. Was it together?
No.
Let me, simple question.
They were together.
They were together.
They just
Was it so,
looked
so,
together.
so were all the pieces together?
Yes.
Your answer is yes. Were all the pieces together?
No.
They were not together. They were somewhere outside of this box?
No, they were inside the box,
They were inside the box.
but they were not together.
They were not together. Were all the pieces, you agree with him?
Inside the box, but not together.
They were not together. Okay. So we have, no, don't change it. Don't change it. No, I don't want you to, hang on. We have three people who worked on the same thing. Three people worked on the same thing. Two give the same answer, one didn't. But they all worked on the same thing. Simple question. Were all of the pieces together? Your answer was what?
Yes.
Your answer was what?
No.
Your answer was?
No.
So then, why weren't they not together?
Because there wasn't assembled, so I could use it.
Those are two different things. So we view being together as a symbol. So were all of the pieces together? The answer is yes. They were together, but it was not assembled. So to answer your question, were the pieces together in one place? Was it together? Not disjointed. Over there, he had a piece, she had a piece. Was these pieces together?
Yeah.
They were together. Now, I think it is safe to assume that the image that we saw did not reflect what was together. Is that true? Okay. So then we have the image in Acts chapter 2, verse 42 of what the early church should look like. We have the image. But when we came in this box here, this is the wall, this is a wall, this is a wall, this is a wall. We got four walls. This is a wall, this is a wall, this is a wall, this is a wall. Now we're all seated in here together. Now my question to you is, now are we assembled? Just because we were in a box in one place at the same time doesn't mean we were assembled. Because there is a temptation that we will feel that when I can't figure out where this go, we don't need this right now. Take this. We don't need this right now. Maybe we'll need the other piece later. Because I'm not convicted enough to figure out where it needs to go now. You had a piece, you had a piece, and you had a piece. But it wasn't assembled until what happened?
We put all the pieces together.
Say that again?
Until we put all the pieces together.
Until we. The assembly didn't happen in isolation. It happened as a group. We put it together. Was that hard? Was it easy?
Yeah.
It was easy. Was it hard? Was it easy? It was easy. You the same thing that did something upside down. You the same one put that pizza right upside down.
No, I wasn't.
Was it hard?
No.
Was it easy?
Yes, that was myself.
You felt like it was easy to assemble your piece with his piece. Then why don't we do that
Come on, Pastor.
every week?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that you would get unnecessary parts?
If it came, it's because it's needed.
At one moment, you didn't think this was needed.
Right, but you see,
Why-
I didn't say throw it away. I knew I needed to keep it because eventually I would need it.
Eventually.
Eventually. I just didn't know what I would need it for at the moment.
So you made this decision based upon what? You were ready to get rid of it, but not throw it away. But when would you need it? When would you need it? When would you need it? When would you need it?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure when you would need it. So because you wasn't sure, you wasn't willing to hold on to it and figure out where it's supposed to go. It was easy assembling the other pieces, but this piece that you couldn't figure out where it goes, you were willing to put it to the side
Yeah. Yeah.
until you needed it. So this one's supposed to feel like it has no value until you need it?
Come on, Pastor. Come on, Pastor.
I walked right into that one, didn't you?
Is it possible that we do this in the gathering of believers?
Yes, sir.
I'll put you to the side until I find a need for you in my life. Because I can't originally see where you fit in. So until I can see where you fit in according to my needs, I'll put you to the side. Which causes this piece to feel like they have no value.
Come on, Pastor.
And makes this piece feel like I don't need to be attached to what already exists. Furthermore, I don't need to be in the box. And most of the people who feel like they can have God without being in the box are generally people who felt like no one showed them value when they came. I don't see how people care for me. I don't see how I am valued when I go to church. Therefore, if they're going to make me feel like the same way I do at home, I might as well stay at home.
Come on, Pastor. Teach, sir.
Maybe. So are we done? We done? Are we done? Huh?
Keep it assembled this time.
So we're assembled.
I can't tell you that we're done. You have to tell us.
Are they done?
You're done assembling.
They're done assembling. There you go. Nadine said, you got to see if this works.
Wait, you forgot one piece.
There's a piece missing.
There's a covering of the church.
There's a piece missing. Is anything missing? No more pieces in here. How do we know that what you put together, that you assembled, works?
Plug it in.
If it completes the purpose.
Are you going to say it again? We're about to give it some power and plug it in.
If it completes the purpose.
What's the purpose?
The purpose of the vacuum is to suck trash up on the floor.
So when all the pieces are assembled, it serves a purpose. When all the pieces are assembled, it serves a purpose. What is the purpose of the individual pieces connected together, assembled? What is the purpose?
Keep it spiritual.
What is its purpose?
To grow.
That's what I was thinking.
This purpose of all of these
Oh,
pieces
the
is
vacuum. I'm sorry. That was a little spiritual. The purpose of the vacuum is to suck up trash.
it's to suck up trash or debris. All right? So it's now assembled. It's
It needs power.
so then can we be assembled? Can we assemble with no power? Can we be assembled as different pieces but still operate with no power? Can we assemble and brag about the fact that we together but we ain't really doing fully what we were created to do. Because a lot of people are excited about the fact they show up and they connected to a ministry, they got a title, they got a role, they got responsibility, but they ain't got no power. How do we get this to function in the capacity it was designed?
It has to be connected to power.
It has to be connected to a power source. Is the power source within itself? It's an outside power source coming into what is already assembled. When it has power being infused in it, what does it do then? Can you give us a demonstration of what it does? Get that little piece right there. Let's see if they pick that up. Look at that. See? Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So we can, okay. We need you on Saturdays. We got that down packed. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's give him a hand. You can leave right there. So there's levels to us maximizing the mission and the purpose of all of these pieces that were created. By itself, it does nothing. The creation of this has to have an interdependent piece.
Yes, sir.
It is dependent on being connected to a tube. This can brag all by itself about the bristles it got, how it can rotate at a fast rate, how it can pick up things at 190-degree angles. It can brag about all of its elusiveness, its aerodynamic technology of how it is formed and shaped, but unless it is connected with another piece, it is not maximized. And so for the times that you think, I don't need nobody else, these are the moments you need to look at yourself just like this. The brilliance of this piece comes alive when it is connected to the other piece. Would you please? So then, it's not enough for us to have all of these pieces together. The pieces must work together to be assembled. Once it's assembled, all they see that is that they can pick up something. They have power. But sometimes you have to have another outside source to show you all of the capabilities that you can do outside of just going in one direction. He's going to show us some of the other functions as they work together of some of the elusive things it could do. Whereas before, the vacuum could not go on these steps, but it can work together in tandem so that the other piece that appeared to have no value can do what the others couldn't do. But it can't do it in isolation. It still needs the support of the other components. Now it looks like that only little piece right there getting the credit, but it ain't gonna be able to do it without the support of the bigger piece. But wait, there's more. Okay. I can pick this and lift away. I want to lift away.
You talking about that? That's just that. Oh, that one.
Yep. Yeah. And wait a minute. And I got this little bad boy right here that nobody. Yeah.
Oh, that one? Oh.
It's the one that just kind of hangs around and just sits idly. Yeah, that's another good piece right there. Hey, look at that. Look at that. See, everybody can be used to get the small things in the small areas that this piece couldn't get. Now watch this bad boy get up in the cracks. Look at that. Crack. Look at that. All up in the cracks. Could this do this? Nah, this would damage stuff. Look at that bad boy get up in the cracks. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. We're all up in there. Look at that. See? Thank you. But sometimes we need someone to come alongside of us to help us to facilitate all of the capabilities that we could do functioning together and making sure that even the smallest pieces see their value. So there comes a time where we have to use the bigger base for wider responsibilities, and then there's times that we have to call on the smaller piece to get in the smaller areas, but we will still support you even though I don't have the ability to fit in that lane. All right? So we'll pause there. All heads bowed.